The Solar Endurance emerged from hyperspace like a whale breaching rough waters, its hull groaning under the strain. Unlike the sleek vessels already gathered at the Helios Cup starting line, the human ship bore the honest wear of 20 years hauling cargo through the solar winds. Its oxidized hull plates and visible repair patches stood in stark contrast to the pristine, almost liquid metal surfaces of the gathered alien vessels. Captain Maya Chen stood at the command station, her weathered hand steady on the manual controls as she guided her ship into the designated holding pattern. Through the bridge viewport, she could see the gathered might of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. The Arcturian quantum ships sparkled like captured stars, their hulls partially phased into higher dimensions. The Zixtal vessels rippled with bioorganic technology, their living metal surfaces adjusting in real time to the solar winds. They're broadcasting again. Lieutenant James Rodriguez reported from communications, his voice tight with suppressed anger. The Arcturian flagship is asking if we got lost on our way to a museum exhibit. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Acknowledge their transmission with standard protocols, Lieutenant. Nothing more. The bridge crew of the Solar Endurance had heard it all before. Their ship, one of Earth's last independent merchant vessels, had no business competing in the galaxy's most prestigious racing event. Even qualifying for the Helios Cup had raised eyebrows across known space. The fact that they'd managed it with a ship that still used fusion drives and manual navigation was considered either a joke or an insult, depending on who you asked. Engineering reports all systems nominal. Chief Engineer Sarah O'Connor's voice came through the internal comm. Her Irish lilt carried a note of pride, the old girl's purring like a kitten. Maya nodded, though her eyes were fixed on the massive holographic display that had appeared above the gathering ships. The Helios Cup qualification trials were about to begin, and the rules were being broadcast in all major galactic languages. The qualification challenge hit the assembled crews like a solar flare. Instead of the expected speed trials, the race organizers announced something unprecedented. A navigation run through an artificial asteroid field where all ships would be limited to pre-FTL technology levels. They're going to disable our advanced systems. The Arcturian captain's incredulous voice boomed across all channels. This is an outrage. How can we demonstrate technological superiority with such primitive limitations? Maya's smile widened as she watched the alien crews scramble to adapt. Their ship's AI cores were being temporarily locked down, their quantum drives powered down, and their bioorganic systems forced into dormancy. For the first time since arriving, the Solar Endurance's crew felt their chances improve. Well, Maya addressed her bridge crew. Looks like we're the only ones here who won't need to make any adjustments. Rodriguez, plot us a course through that field. Sarah, give me everything you can from the fusion drives. Let's show them what primitive can do. The artificial asteroid field loomed ahead, a maze of spinning rocks and debris that would challenge any pilot's skills. But unlike their competitors, the Solar Endurance's crew had been flying with these limitations their entire careers. They understood the physics, felt the ship's movements in their bones, and knew exactly how to compensate for the delays and limitations of non-quantum computers. As the qualification run began, the gathered ships lurched awkwardly into motion. Their crews, used to letting AI handle the complex calculations of spaceflight, struggled to adapt to manual controls. The mighty Arcturian vessels, stripped of their quantum advantages, wallowed like wounded beasts. The living ships of the Zixtal, cut off from their neural networks, barely managed to maintain stable orbits. The Solar Endurance, however, moved with practiced grace. Maya's hands danced across the controls, making minute adjustments based on decades of experience rather than computer suggestions. Rodriguez called out trajectory updates while monitoring the debris patterns. In engineering, Sarah coaxed extra power from the fusion drives with the expertise of someone who understood every bolt and weld in her engine room. First obstacle cluster approaching, Rodriguez announced. Multiple spinning bodies, variable trajectories. Maya nodded, feeling the rhythm of her ship, understanding its limits and capabilities in a way no eye could match. Plot us a course through the gap between the two largest bodies. We'll use their gravitational interaction to slingshot past the second cluster. The solar endurance threaded through the asteroid field like a needle through fabric, each movement precise and purposeful. Where other ships hesitated or overcompensated, the human vessel maintained a steady course, its crew working in perfect synchronization. As they emerged from the other side of the field, the standings appeared on the main display. The solar endurance hadn't posted the fastest time, but they were the only ship to complete the course without a single collision or course correction. They had qualified third overall, beating out dozens of ships that cost hundreds of times more to build. "Well done, everyone," Maya said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of vindication. But this was just the beginning. The real race starts tomorrow, and now they know we're not here as a joke. The communication channels had gone notably quiet. The mockery had ceased, replaced by a tense silence, as the galaxy's most advanced civilizations faced an uncomfortable reality. Sometimes the oldest solutions were still the best ones. As the solar endurance took its place in the qualifying lineup, Maya caught sight of their reflection in the polished hull of a nearby Arcturian vessel. Their ship might look worn and dated, but today it had proven something vital. That humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, but in their ability to master it, regardless of its level of advancement. The real race would begin at dawn, and now every crew in the fleet would be watching the primitive human ship with new eyes. They had earned their place at the starting line, but tomorrow would determine if they could turn this small victory into something legendary. Dawn arrived in the form of a distant pulsar's rhythmic flashes. The starting line for the Helios Cup stretched across the void, marked by ancient energy buoys that predated most of the competing civilizations. The solar endurance held its position at the third marker, its fusion drives humming steadily while more advanced ships around them thrummed with barely contained power. "Course data incoming," Rodriguez announced from his station. The holographic display above their heads illuminated with the race route, and Maya felt her breath catch. The first leg would take them through the heart of the quantum storm field known as the Maelstrom. "They're mad," Sarah's voice crackled over the Kong from engineering. "Those quantum fluctuations will play havoc with any advanced navigation systems. Half these ships rely on quantum entanglement for basic operations." Maya studied the course with growing interest. The Maelstrom was notorious for disrupting higher dimensional technologies. Most trading vessels spent considerable fuel plotting courses around it. To go through it, they're not testing our speed, she realized. They're testing our reliability. The starting signal came without warning, a pulse of energy from the ancient buoys that set the assembled ships in motion. The Arcturian vessels surged forward immediately, their quantum drives tearing holes in space-time. The Zixtal bioships followed, their living hulls already adapting to the race conditions. The solar endurance launched with less dramatic flair, its fusion drives pushing it steadily into the void. Multiple ships already hitting quantum interference, Rodriguez reported, monitoring the fleet's progress. The maelstroms affecting their navigation systems sooner than expected. Maya watched as the leading vessels began to show signs of struggle. The quantum drives that gave them their incredible speed were becoming their greatest weakness. Each wave of quantum distortion forced their systems to recalibrate, causing dangerous fluctuations in their power distribution. "Sarah, how are our systems holding up?" Maya asked, keeping her hand steady on the controls as they approached the storm's edge. "Fusion drives stable, Captain. Nothing here complex enough to be affected by quantum interference. We're running as smooth as Earth's silk." The first casualty of the maelstrom came within minutes. One of the Arcturian ships attempted to compensate for the quantum interference by pushing its drives harder. The result was spectacular and terrifying. Its quantum field collapsed, leaving the ship drifting and powerless. "Taking us to emergency speed," Maya announced. "Rodriguez, plot an intercept course. Sarah, prepare emergency power systems for a potential rescue operation." "Captain," Rodriguez protested. We'll lose our position. We're currently holding 4th place. There are crews on that ship, Maya replied firmly. The race can wait. The Solar Endurance altered course, its reliable fusion drives carrying it surely toward the stricken vessel. As they approached, they witnessed 2 more advanced ships attempt rescue operations, only to have their own systems disrupted by the intensifying quantum storms. Their quantum fields are preventing them from making physical contact, Rodriguez observed. The interference patterns are too chaotic. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Good thing we don't have that problem. Sarah, extend our magnetic grapples. Old-fashioned metal on metal should do the trick. The Solar Endurance's rescue operation was textbook perfect. Their primitive magnetic grapples locked onto the Arcturian vessel's hull, and their stable power systems allowed them to extend their shields around both ships. The rescued crew's initial disdain turned to grudging respect as they were safely transferred aboard. Your ship, the Arcturian captain admitted as they watched their vessel being towed to safety. It's not what we expected. Those magnetic grapples, we abandoned such technology centuries ago. Sometimes the simple solutions are the most reliable, Maya replied diplomatically, especially when the laws of physics decide to stop playing nice. As they resumed their race position, they discovered something unexpected. The delay caused by the rescue had actually worked in their favor. The leading ships had been forced to drastically reduce speed to navigate the worst of the quantum interference, while the Solar Endurance's steady pace allowed them to maintain a consistent velocity. Multiple ships dropping out of the race, Rodriguez reported with increasing amazement. Their quantum drives can't handle the strain. We're moving into 2nd place, Captain. Maya nodded, her focus unwavering. Let's not celebrate yet. We're not even halfway through the maelstrom. Sarah, how are the fusion drives holding up? Like a well-oiled machine, Captain. These storms might mess with quantum fields, but they can't argue with good old thermodynamics. The Solar Endurance pressed on through the quantum chaos, its crew working with practiced efficiency. While other ships fought against the storm's effects on their advanced systems, the human vessel simply endured, its technology too basic to be affected by the quantum fluctuations. The Arcturian refugees watched from the observation deck, their earlier contempt replaced by thoughtful observation. They witnessed firsthand how the human crew handled each challenge manually, using their understanding of fundamental space navigation rather than relying on AI assistance. Your crew, one of them noted to Rodriguez during a quiet moment, they understand the underlying principles of space travel in a way we've forgotten. We've let our technology do our thinking for so long. Rodriguez smiled. Captain Chen always says that you can't truly master technology unless you can work without it. Every crew member on this ship can navigate by the stars if they have to, calculate orbital mechanics on paper, and troubleshoot engine problems without diagnostic computers. As they emerged from the worst of the maelstrom, the race standings showed only a third of the original ships still competing. The Solar Endurance held 2nd place, its position earned not through superior technology, but through the reliability of its systems and the expertise of its crew. First leg complete, Maya announced to her crew, but don't get comfortable. Something tells me the race organizers have more surprises in store for us. She studied the next section of the course with careful attention. The quantum storm had proven that advanced technology could be a liability under the right circumstances. The question now was whether humanity's mastery of fundamental principles would continue to serve them in the challenges ahead. The antimatter nebula loomed ahead like a twisted aurora, its violently beautiful colors signaling danger to any ship that dared enter its bounds. As the Solar Endurance approached the start of the 2nd leg, Maya studied the sensor readings with growing concern. The nebula's radiation patterns were unlike anything she'd seen in her decades of space travel. Analysis coming in, Rodriguez called out, his voice tense. The nebula's composed of antimatter particles in an unstable quantum state. The race route takes us straight through the densest portion. Sarah's voice crackled over the comm, concern evident in her tone. Captain, those particle concentrations. Most modern shields are designed to repel normal matter. Even a small collision with antimatter could cascade into catastrophic shield failure. Maya nodded, watching as the leading ship, a six-hull biovessel, approached the nebula's edge. Its living hull rippled with protective adaptations, attempting to create new defense mechanisms on the fly. Behind them, the remaining ships were spreading out, each crew likely strategizing how to handle this unprecedented challenge. "What's our advantage here?" Maya asked, her eyes never leaving the sensor displays. "Our shields," Sarah replied immediately. "They're based on magnetic containment principles, the same technology Earth used in its first antimatter storage facilities. Basic, yes, but proven against antimatter contamination." The Zixtal ship made first contact with the nebula. Its advanced bioshields flared brilliantly as they attempted to adapt to the antimatter particles. For a moment, it seemed to be working, until a sudden burst of radiation indicated shield failure. The living ship recoiled, parts of its hull visibly scared. "Multiple distress signals," Rodriguez reported. "The Zixtal ship's biosystems are in shock. 2 more vessels reporting critical shield instabilities." Maya made her decision. "Sarah, divert power to the magnetic containment fields. We're going to show them how Earth handled antimatter before AI shield generators were invented. Rodriguez, broadcast these shield frequencies to any ship that can still receive. We might be racing against them, but I'm not watching good crews die today." The Solar Endurance pushed forward into the nebula, its primitive magnetic shields creating a bubble of safe space around the ship. The crew worked with practiced precision, manually adjusting field strengths to account for varying particle densities. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective. "Incoming transmission from the Zixtal ship," Rodriguez announced. They're asking for our shield specifications. Their biotech can't adapt fast enough to the antimatter exposure." "Send them everything," Maya ordered, "and prepare emergency protocols. If their systems can't handle it, we might need to extend our shields around them." The next hours were intense. The Solar Endurance moved steadily through the nebula, becoming a beacon of stability in the chaos. Ships that had once mocked their outdated technology now followed in their wake, using the shield specifications they'd shared to modify their own defense systems. "It's not just about the technology," Sarah explained over an open channel to the following ships. "You need to feel the field fluctuations, anticipate the particle density changes. Your AI can't react fast enough. This has to be done manually." The human crew's expertise became invaluable. They found themselves teaching advanced civilizations how to operate their shields manually, sharing centuries-old techniques that had never been fully replaced by automation. The race had transformed into a masterclass in fundamental space physics. "Ship approaching on our port side," Rodriguez warned. "It's the Arcturian vessel we rescued earlier." The quantum ship pulled alongside, its once pristine hull now showing signs of battle with the nebula. Its captain's voice came through clear on the comm. "Captain Chen, we request permission to coordinate our shield frequencies with yours. Our quantum fields are insufficient for this challenge." Maya allowed herself a small smile. "Permission granted. Rodriguez, share our containment protocols." Sarah talked their engineering team through the manual adjustments. As they pushed deeper into the nebula, the Solar Endurance found itself at the center of an impromptu fleet. Ships from across the galaxy had set aside their pride, following the human vessel's lead through the antimatter storm. Their advanced technologies, when properly integrated with the basic principles the humans had mastered, proved more effective than either approach alone. Reading a massive particle surge ahead, Rodriguez announced, density increasing by several orders of magnitude. "They're testing our limits," Maya realized. This whole race, it's not about who has the best technology. It's about who best understands how to use what they have. The particle surge hit them like a physical wall. Ships with purely automated systems immediately fell behind, their computers unable to process the complex interactions quickly enough. But the vessels that had adopted the human approach, Manual control supported by technology rather than replaced by it. Maintained formation. Engineering to bridge. Sarah called, her voice strained but proud. The containment fields are holding. We're actually doing better than expected. Looks like the particle interactions are following patterns similar to old Earth fusion reactor physics. It's like coming home. Maya watched as their position in the race continued to improve, not because they were faster or more advanced, but because they simply kept going while others were forced to retreat. The nebula had become a great equalizer, stripping away the advantages of pure technology and forcing every crew to rely on their fundamental understanding of space physics. As they approached the nebula's far boundary, the number of ships still in the race had dwindled to less than a quarter of the original fleet. The Solar Endurance held a solid position near the front, but more importantly, they had earned something far more valuable than race position. Message from race control, Rodriguez reported, a note of disbelief in his voice. They're asking us to document our nebula crossing protocols. They want to make them standard procedure for future ships passing through this region. Maya nodded, understanding the significance. Humanity's outdated technology and techniques had just become the galaxy's new reference standard for antimatter nebula navigation. It was a victory that went far beyond the race itself. Send them everything, she ordered. But first, let's focus on what's ahead. Something tells me the race organizers have saved their biggest surprise for last. The final leg of the race beckoned, and the remaining ships formed up behind the Solar Endurance with a newfound respect. They had entered the nebula as competitors, but emerged as students of humanity's enduring wisdom. That true mastery comes not from having the most advanced technology, but from truly understanding the principles behind it. The ancient megastructure materialized before the remaining racers like a metallic web spun between the stars. Its lattice corridors stretched for millions of kilometers, a maze of technology so old it predated every civilization in the race. This was the legendary Horizons Labyrinth, rumored to be the final test of the Helios Cup. Artificial gravity fluctuations off the scale, Rodriguez reported, his hands dancing across his console. The structure's putting out energy signatures I've never seen before. Our database has no matches. Maya studied the massive construct, noting how its corridors seemed to shift and change even as she watched. The remaining ships of the fleet, now numbering less than 20, had gathered at the labyrinth's edge, their advanced sensors probing the ancient technology. Engineering to bridge. Sarah's voice carried a note of appreciation. These energy readings, they're similar to the old Earth particle accelerators, primitive by today's standards. But the principles are the same. The lead ship, a Zixtal vessel that had adapted well to their earlier lessons, attempted to enter first. Its bioorganic systems reached out to interface with the structure, trying to map a safe path through the maze. Within moments, the ship recoiled as if struck. The Zixtal ship is reporting total system failure, Rodriguez announced. Their AI can't interpret the structure's patterns. It's too alien, too old. Maya watched as other ships made their attempts. The Arterians tried to use their quantum technology to plot all possible paths simultaneously, only to have their calculations collapse in confusion. Every attempt to technologically outsmart the labyrinth ended in failure. Look at the energy flows, Maya said quietly, her eyes tracing the patterns of light that pulsed through the structure. They're not random. There's a rhythm to them, like the old sea charts showing tidal patterns. Captain, Rodriguez looked up from his readings, puzzled. When humanity first began ocean navigation, we didn't have GPS or digital charts. Maya explained. We learned to read the water, the winds, the stars. We found the natural patterns in seemingly chaos. She straightened in her chair. Sarah, power down all automated navigation systems. We're doing this old school. Old school, Captain. Sarah's voice held a mix of surprise and understanding. Human eyes, human intuition, and basic thrust control, Maya confirmed. Rodriguez, plot our course based on visual observation only. Look for the flow patterns, like reading a river. The Solar Endurance moved forward while other ships continued their technological attempts to map the maze. Maya guided the ship manually, following the pulses of energy that rippled through the structure's framework. It was like navigating a current, reading the eddies and flows of space itself. The structure's energy patterns, Rodriguez said suddenly, excitement in his voice. They're cycling, like ocean waves, if we time our movements to match. Exactly, Maya smiled. Sarah, adjust our engine output to match the energy pulses. Let's surf these waves instead of fighting them. The Solar Endurance began to move through the labyrinth with growing confidence. While other ships fought against the structure's mysterious forces, the human vessel flowed with them. They weren't trying to outsmart the ancient technology. They were working in harmony with it. Multiple ships are requesting our navigation data, Rodriguez reported. They don't understand how we're doing this. Tell them to turn off their automated systems, Maya ordered. The labyrinth isn't something to be calculated. It needs to be felt. One by one, the remaining ships began to follow the Solar Endurance's example. Those that could adapt to manual navigation made progress. Those that couldn't were forced to withdraw. The race had become a test not of technological superiority, but of fundamental understanding and intuition. We're approaching what appears to be the central chamber, Rodriguez announced after hours of careful navigation. Energy readings are intensifying. The chamber that opened before them was vast, its walls lined with pulsing crystals that seemed to bend space itself. The few ships that had made it this far gathered at its entrance, their crews trying to understand the final challenge before them. The crystal patterns, Maya murmured, watching the light displays. They're like the old lighthouse codes Earth used to guide ships through dangerous waters. They're not just decoration. They're navigation markers. While other ships attempted to analyze the crystal patterns with their advanced sensors, the Solar Endurance's crew worked to decode them using visual observation alone. Their experience with ancient Earth navigation methods gave them an unexpected advantage in understanding this ancient system. Course plotted through the central chamber, Rodriguez announced proudly. If I'm reading these patterns correctly, there's a safe path that follows the original principles of celestial navigation. Well done, Maya said, her hands steady on the controls. Sarah, keep our power output matched to the energy pulses. Let's show them how Earth's ancient mariners would handle this. The Solar Endurance moved into the chamber with deliberate precision. The crystal's pulses intensified around them, creating what appeared to be a road of light through the void. It was beautiful, dangerous, and somehow deeply familiar to anyone who had ever navigated by the stars. As they followed the crystal-lit path, Maya realized something profound. The labyrinth wasn't just a test. It was a message from whoever had built it. A reminder that true mastery of space travel didn't come from increasingly complex technology, but from understanding the fundamental patterns of the universe itself. We're through. Rodriguez's voice carried the excitement of triumph. Captain, we're the first ship to clear the central chamber. The finish line is in visual range. Maya allowed herself a moment of pride, but kept her focus on the final stretch. They had proven something extraordinary, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, but in their ability to understand and work with the basic principles of navigation and space travel. The Solar Endurance emerged from the labyrinth like a ship breaking through storm clouds into clear skies. Behind them, the few remaining vessels followed their path, having learned that sometimes the oldest wisdom was the most valuable. Race control is confirming our position, Rodriguez reported, his voice filled with barely contained joy. We're in the lead, Captain. We're actually in the lead. Maya nodded, but her eyes were fixed on the finish line ahead. They had come this far by trusting in fundamental principles and human intuition. Now there was just one final sprint to prove that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most elegant. All hands, she called over the ship-wide comm. Prepare for the final approach. Let's show them what humanity's primitive technology can really do. The finish line stretched before them like a ribbon of starlight, marked by the same ancient buoys that had started the race. The Solar Endurance led a drastically reduced fleet, Only 5 ships remained of the original 100 that had begun the Helios Cup. Behind them, the horizon's labyrinth pulsed with mysterious energy, its final secrets still waiting to be fully understood. Multiple ships accelerating, Rodriguez reported, tracking the remaining competitors. They're making their final push. Maya watched as the advanced vessels surged forward, their crews having learned to balance their technology with manual control. The Arcturian quantum ship and the adapted Zixtal vessel were closing fast, their superior engines finally finding their rhythm after the lessons of the race. They're faster than us, Sarah admitted from engineering. The fusion drives can't match their raw speed in open space. But there was a knowing tone in her voice. We've got something they don't. Maya nodded, understanding perfectly. We've got 20 years of experience reading spatial anomalies. Rodriguez, what do the finish line boys remind you of? He studied the ancient markers carefully. They're similar to the technology in the labyrinth. The same energy signature. Exactly. Maya smiled. Sarah, prepare for emergency power redistribution. Something tells me these ancient builders left us one final test. As the leading ships approached the finish line at maximum acceleration, the ancient boys began to pulse with increasing intensity. The same mysterious energy that had confused advanced sensors in the labyrinth now radiated across the final stretch of the race. Energy wave building, Rodriguez warned. Similar pattern to the labyrinth's central chamber, but much more intense. The effect on the approaching ships was immediate. The quantum drives of the Arcturian vessel began to fluctuate wildly as they interacted with the ancient energy field. The Zixtal ship's biosystems struggled to adapt to the rapidly changing conditions. But the solar endurance pressed on, its crew reading the energy patterns with practiced ease. They had learned the language of this ancient technology, understanding it not through advanced analysis, but through fundamental principles of space and energy. The boys aren't just markers, Maya realized as they drew closer. They're creating a specific path through space-time, like the currents we followed in the labyrinth. She adjusted their course slightly. Sarah, match our power output to the boy pulses, just like we did in the maze. The solar endurance's fusion drives hummed in harmony with the ancient technology. While other ships fought against the energy distortions, the human vessel rode them like a surfer catching a perfect wave. They weren't faster, but they were moving with the flow of space itself. Message from the Arcturian ship, Rodriguez announced, surprise in his voice. Their captain says, he says they finally understand. The race was never about speed or technological advancement. Maya nodded as they crossed the final threshold. It was about understanding, about remembering that the fundamental principles of space travel don't change, no matter how advanced our technology becomes. The finish line erupted in a display of light as the solar endurance passed through it. They had done it. Earth's primitive cargo hauler had won the most prestigious race in the galaxy. But the real victory wasn't in being first. Race Control is requesting our presence at the award ceremony, Rodriguez reported. But there's something else. The energy readings from the boys. They're forming some kind of message. The ancient markers projected a holographic message that appeared on every ship's viewing screens. The language was older than any current civilization, but its meaning was clear through the universal language of mathematics and physics. It's a warning, Maya translated, reading the basic principles encoded in the message. And a reminder. The builders of the labyrinth. They were warning us about the dangers of letting technology advance beyond our understanding of fundamental principles. The message continued to unfold, revealing that the entire race course, from the quantum storms to the antimatter nebula to the labyrinth, had been designed to test not technological superiority, but understanding and adaptability. Engineering to bridge. Sarah's voice was filled with awe. The builders. They must have foreseen this. A time when civilizations would become so dependent on advanced technology that they'd forget the basic principles that made space travel possible. The award ceremony that followed wasn't just a celebration of the solar endurance's victory. It became a moment of profound realization for the gathered civilizations. The human crew found themselves surrounded not by competitors, but by students eager to learn. Your ship, the Arcturian captain addressed Maya during the ceremony. It's not primitive at all, is it? It's fundamental. Like the laboratory where a scientist first discovers the laws of physics. Maya accepted the Helios cup, its ancient metal warm to the touch. Every member of my crew can navigate by the stars alone if they have to. We can calculate orbital mechanics with pencil and paper. We understand our technology because we learned everything that led to its creation. The ceremony concluded with an unprecedented announcement. The race organizers, deeply moved by the lessons revealed, declared that future Helios Cup races would require all ships to demonstrate mastery of fundamental space travel principles without relying solely on advanced technology. As the Solar Endurance prepared for its journey home, Maya gathered her crew for one final observation of the ancient boys. Their mysterious energy still pulsed through space, a reminder of the timeless principles that govern the universe. We didn't just win a race, she told them, her voice carrying pride not in their victory, but in what it represented. We helped remind the galaxy that advancement isn't just about creating new technology. It's about understanding the foundations that make that technology possible. The stars stretched out before them as they set course for Earth, their primitive ship having taught the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. That true mastery comes not from the technology you possess, but from understanding the principles that make it work. As they engaged their fusion drives for the journey home, Maya reflected that perhaps this was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, not innovation or advancement, but the wisdom to remember and respect the fundamental principles that made space travel possible in the first place. The Solar Endurance disappeared into the depths of space, leaving behind a changed galaxy. They had entered the race as underdogs, but emerged as teachers, proving that sometimes the oldest wisdom is the most valuable of all.